G'day guys, welcome back to another video. So today we are going to do another vehicle rundown. We're going to look at this 2014 Prado 150 series. You may recognize it from some of the videos that we do on the channel, and we're going to go through all the accessories and modifications that have been done to this vehicle to make it a little bit more capable off-road. So stay tuned to find out more. Okay guys, so welcome back to another vehicle rundown. So today we're looking at this 2014 Prado 150 series. Now the reason this vehicle features a few times in our videos is because I used to own this vehicle. So back in 2015 I bought this vehicle stock standard, not a modification on it, and I did most of the work to it, and I have a lot of the reasoning behind the modifications we did on it. So we'll go through everything today, front to back, what we did, why we did it, and what's been done since I've sold it to Mark. So let's get started with this bull bar. Okay, so the first thing we did to this vehicle was stick on a ARB bull bar. So this is a ARB steel Summit bull bar, which is winch compatible. One of the better looking bars made by ARB in my opinion, and we just got this just in the black colour, same as my 200 series that we run on these videos as well. Obviously this car, graphite grey, one of the best looking colours I reckon Toyota make, and the black on grey looks really good in my opinion. So we left it black. Attached to that bull bar I mounted a light bar. So we've got a 22-inch core lighting light bar. This is a double row. It's pretty good. It's a really good combination between spread and distance, and it's been on the car for quite a while. There has been a switch over at one point, but it's back on the car again, and it's doing its job really well. So with the fog lights in this, just the standard fog lights that come with the Summit bar have been installed, and you've got LED parkers and indicators as well. You do have a couple of tabs on the top of the bull bar here. In this case we've got a UHF antenna mounted to the passenger side tab. This one here is just used as a bit of a around the town antenna. There is normally a 6.6 decibel fiberglass antenna that screws onto this base, but it can't fit into garages and car parks with it on, so around town we just leave the small one on. Also with this bar, after I owned it, Mark's fitted a winch to it, so it's a Ridge Rider 12,000 pound electric winch. That's just mounted in behind the bull bar there, and with the Summit bars they do come with a cutout on top, so the control box can be mounted countersunk into that bull bar there, and it makes it real nice and flush and a nice tidy appearance there on top. So and also with the Summit bar you do get this little netting plastic material here which opens up so you can reach in to engage your clutch. Apart from that, you do have your factory ARB bash plate and your wing kit on the side of the bull bar. This just comes with the bull bars, it's nothing aftermarket, but we chose not to go bash plates the whole way down the vehicle. Two reasons for that: we don't take these vehicles extreme four-wheel driving, so we just don't seem to need them. Mechanical side of things, a pain to remove and put back on every time you do a service on the vehicle, and probably the biggest reason is weight. We wanted to keep the weight down. Not that it's excessively heavy anyway, but off-road vehicles do benefit from being a lighter weight, so that's one reasoning behind that. We do have a pair of road safe recovery points on the front as well, one on each side, and so far unfortunately they're yet to be used, so we'll get there at one stage anyway. Lighting wise, in terms of the headlights, everything's stock there, so you're just running your halogen bulbs there, but I think it's something that Mark will be looking into, be doing an LED conversion to both high beam and low beam, and probably the fog lights as well. And after doing it on the high beam on the 200, it's made a big difference, so it's something that I would recommend. So let's move on down the side of the car and see what we've done there. Okay guys, so moving down the driver's side of the vehicle here, you can see we've fitted a snorkel. This is just the Safari V-Spec snorkel. Nothing out of the ordinary there, still running the standard equipment on it. Just like the 200 series, we chose Safari. They're a good, reputable brand, and we've had Noka plates with them in the past, so we've stuck another one on this vehicle. Roof rack wise, again, same as the 200, we are running the Rhino Rack Pioneer platform with the backbone system. They are just a great unit, nice and light, extremely heavy duty, very easy to mount different accessories to, with the, both from Rhino themselves and also aftermarket accessories. And Mark has mounted a 120 watt solar panel up there as well since owning the car. So that runs through the battery management system and just keeps the car charged, just like we are now in the sun. It'll be charging the battery up, which is awesome for that. Down the side of the vehicle, we have chosen again not to run steel side steps, so we're running the just the plastic factory side steps. The two reasons for that are, again, we just don't need them. We're not doing that hardcore rock crawling sort of forward driving in this vehicle. The second reason is, again, weight. So keeping the weight down. If we don't need it, we didn't put it on. If we get to a stage where we think we might need it, it's something that can definitely be added on. But for now, these are doing just fine, and we're yet to break them off. So we'll keep going with them. So we'll move around to the wheels and tyres, and we'll go through that. So moving down to the wheels, tyres and suspension we're running on this car. So when I owned the vehicle, I decided to go for the CSA Raptors, and I didn't do that for any particular reason other than the fact that I reckon they look pretty cool. So there's still 17-inch rims, same as the stock wheels you get with this car. There's still your 8-inch wide rim, and there's similar offset as well. So probably the only thing on the car that doesn't serve much of a purpose other than matching the rest of the accessories and looking pretty cool. So wrapped to that, we do have BF Goodrich all-terrain. Again, I put them on, and it's just a personal choice. I never had an issue with BF before. They've always been a good tyre for me. This is the 5th set that I'm running on the 200 series now. The size we went for this one is a 265/70/17. So it's just under a 32-inch, so nothing extreme, and it's doing the job pretty well. We haven't had a drama with these, and they would have done about probably 60-70,000 K now, and they've still got plenty of tread left on them. So been a good tyre so far. And the best thing about this setup is it all fits straight into the equipment here. Nothing needs doing. You don't need upper control arms, lower control arms, mud flaps removed, nothing like that. Fits straight in at that size. Suspension wise, we're running a ARB Old Man Emu Nitro Charger system. There's no GVM upgrade or anything on this car. It's just a spring and shock replacement on this vehicle. So nothing too much in that. There's no diff drops or anything like that. It's just a plain 2-inch lifted system. And for the rear springs, we've just gone for your 0 to 250 kilo springs. And we've put some airbag man control airbags in there as well. So we did used to tow our van with this car. And obviously it used to be on its limit. These cars have a towing capacity of 2.5 tonne. Our van weighs 2,488 kilos, so it did put it to its test. But the airbags managed to keep the car quite level when the van was attached. When you take the van off, those light duty springs gave it a really nice plush ride as well. So a good compromise there. Moving around to the back of the vehicle, guys. So as you can see, we haven't done a whole lot in terms of aftermarket modifications here. It's got a standard tow bar on the back here. To that we've got mounted our airbag controls for our rear suspension, so they're just manual valves there to be pumped up through a hand pump or an air compressor, and a 12-pin plug there that connects to the caravan, but it can also connect to a normal trailer as well. When I owned the car, I opted not to go for a rear bar. Again, just a sort of a weight saving thing. We haven't yet smashed the back of the bumper on this car yet, and hoping not to. So we don't need it just yet. Obviously on these Prados your spare tyres already mounted on the rear door anyway, so there's still plenty of room underneath there for clearance. But other than that, it's fairly factory, and you've still got your reverse camera mounted in your standard factory position there as well. We have taken the spare wheel cover off, although it just fits with these size tyres. Again, I just prefer the look of it without it, just personal preference there. And as from here you can also see the awning we've mounted to the roof rack here as well. So Mark's had an ARB awning mounted to the side of the roof rack there just for a bit of shade when we're out camping. So we'll move around to the engine bay now, and then we'll work through the inside of the car. Okay, so now we're under the bonnet of this car here. So with this car, I never really touched the engine on this vehicle when I owned it, and neither has Mark, to be honest. I bought this car in 2015, and it was one of the last vehicles, I think it was 2 months before they changed it over to the 2.8 litre. So in this car, we're still running the D4D 3 litre 4-cylinder turbo diesel. In my opinion, after driving the 2.8 as well, I prefer, especially with the amount of DPF issues that Toyota are having with these engines and the earlier model engines as well. Yes, the 2.8 does have probably a little bit more refined and a bit quieter, but I would choose one of these engines still, even after a few years, over one of those 2.8s at this time. Too bad they don't make a big capacity engine like a V6 or even a V8. But anyway, engine is stock standard. There's no exhausts or catch cans or fuel management systems on this engine at all. What is up here though is all our battery management systems. So the Prado 150s, they come out with a single starter battery, which is this one here, and we've just left that be. But what we have done is we've added a secondary battery on the driver's side of the car, and that is a Full River 105 amp hour deep cycle battery. To manage all that, we're also running a BCDC 1225D. So that's a 20 amp charger, and the D stands for solar input as well. So this vehicle can have solar, which I explained before. Mark is running a 120 watt solar panel on the roof, which is wired into that controller, and that will trickle charge that deep cycle battery. All of that battery management system, all the fuses and wiring and whatnot, is managed through a platform up the back corner up here. So all the vehicles I've owned have always been worked on by Ultimate 4-wheel drive equipment down in Bibra Lake in Perth. And in my opinion, their electrical work is second to none. Some of the best out there. I've never had a drama with it. Extremely neat and reliable. So all the fuses for all our aftermarket accessories are all mounted here. So if anything goes wrong, we can come to the car, check the fuses at the first point. Also in this engine bay, the other thing we're running is an air compressor as well. So we've got a mounted air compressor in the engine bay, and that's an ARB single air compressor mounted up there in the back corner on the driver's side of the vehicle. So there's a switch inside the cab, that'll activate it, and then you can use that to pump up all your tyres. Probably the only thing I didn't take into account when mounting that up there is when we're towing. Your hoses aren't going to reach, well your standard hose anyway, is not going to reach from that compressor to the wheels on the trailer. So we overcame that just by buying a second hose and doubling the length, and it still works fine. But on the 200 after this one, I have mounted the air compressor in the rear. For that reason, it just makes it a little bit easier. But other than that, that's about it for the engine bay. Look, so maybe something like an exhaust wouldn't go astray on a car like this. It'd make it it's a little bit punchier, but overall they are a small capacity engine, but they are good for what they do, and they are really good on fuel as well. So let's move on inside the vehicle and go from there. Okay guys, so moving on into the cab of the vehicle. Look, again, I set this vehicle up pretty minimally inside. I don't like a lot of clutter in the cars that I drive. And Mark's continued that theme as well. There's nothing in here that's unnecessary or takes up a lot of room. Still has that nice factory look about it. So the things we have mounted in here, just in relation to electronics. So we've got our UHF here. So this is running an ICOM unit here. It's a HM212. And again, it's running through a unit that is remote. So obviously all your controls here are on your handset, and the main unit is behind the dash. If you want to remove this, it's simply an Ethernet cable down there in the passenger footwell. You can pop that out and put that away when you're not using it. When I had the vehicle, I didn't opt to fit a mount to it. There's nowhere really that easily accessible to clip it to, but there is this little pocket in the center, and I'll put a close up of that, which we just keep it in when we're using it, and it sits there perfectly, and it's just as easy to get to. In terms of switches and whatnot, we also have a battery link switch down here by the left knee of the driver. So that there is a momentary switch that will link the two batteries in parallel if your starter battery were to run flat, and allow you to start that car if you really need to. So a very handy thing to have. By the driver's right knee, you have a couple of extra switches, and they control the spotlights, the air compressor, and there's a basic dual battery monitor in there as well, just so you can see what the batteries are doing. Apart from that, the only thing Mark's got mounted in here is a phone mount on the right hand side of the windscreen here, and he does mount a GPS in the center when we go off-road. Down here in the center next to where we keep the UHF as well is a Red Arc Tow Pro brake controller control knob. This is not the actual unit itself, that is mounted behind the dash, but it is there in the center of the vehicle, which is quite easy. So that is a good idea to mount them in the center of the vehicle, just so that if anything were to happen while you're driving with a heavy vehicle, with a heavy trailer, your passenger can also manually activate those brakes if required to do so. So just another thing you can think about if you are mounting one of those. Other than that, this car's pretty stock on the inside, and it's still got that nice clean factory look about it. So let's move into the rear compartment, and we'll go through what we've done there. Okay guys, so moving into the rear compartment of the Prado. These Prados are a 7-seater from factory. Now the 150s went through a few changes in relation to how they set up their rear seats. So the 2014 model, which this one is, came with seats that folded into the floor. However, they were lifted up in the cargo area a fair way, and that's to allow for a bigger sub-tank to be fitted in the back of the car, so you get a little bit more fuel carrying capacity. However, from what you can see, these spare seats take up a lot of room even when folded down into the floor. Now again, we wanted the space to be fairly universal and usable, both having drawers off-road but being fairly open to take our dogs along or stack a lot of gear if we're not on a four-wheel drive trip. So what we've done is we contacted Drifter, and they're a company over in New South Wales that make these drawers, and they made a custom set of drawers here that replace those rear seats and take them out. They put a false floor in, and we've got these drawers made as slimline as possible, so as short a profile as we could, just to give us all this area to work with here. So they're nice and low profile, but yet the way these drawers work is they don't have ball bearings or rollers as your typical drawers have, but they run on Teflon tape strips. Now the advantage to that is that these drawers are full width, so there's no space taken up by rollers on the side. And they still slide nice and easily, so they don't have the same movement that a ball bearing drawer have, but they are still very handy and very easy to use. One other big benefit that comes with not having those rollers and those slides is weight. So I took those rear seats off and I weighed them. I'm not going to lie, I can't remember the exact weight they were, but after weighing that and after weighing the drawer system before it was put in, we actually made a weight saving of about 11 kilos by putting these drawer systems in, obviously empty, when you compare that to the factory seats. So these are not a heavy system, and they bolt in very easily. Definitely a system I'd recommend, and it's still doing the job really, really well. We also got 4 tie-down points, so I opted when I owned the car not to go for a fridge slide. Because they are that short profile, a drop-down slide would have hit this rear bar without going for the full height, and having a fridge slide, it's still going to be very high and very hard to access, especially for my wife who's a bit shorter. So we just decided to put these 4 tie-down points in the drawers, which are fridge mounts do normally. Still very easy to get to. Yes, it's a little bit of a reach in there, but it's still very accessible and easy to get to, and you've still got all this side on the right here. You don't have to worry about mounting slides, extra weight, extra space, and nothing falling in behind those that fridge there when you pull it out. So there's a few little electronics that we got added in. We got a couple of 12-volt ports put in the passenger side, and that powers one, obviously powers the fridge. The other one's just a spare, and that goes into a factory compartment that we've opened up. And then we've got another port, 12-volt cigarette outlet put on the driver's side as well. So with the Prados, because they do use their space quite well from factory, the wing kits on these cars are very small. So they are there, but the wheel arches do not impede on that cargo space much at all. So your drawers are nice and wide. But there are some small wing kits, and we just keep things like spares and things you don't need to get to very often in those little kits there. And I'll show a close-up of them. Also on the Prado, you've got your rear door. So one big barn door on the Prado means that you've got a lot of space in here as well. Obviously it's where your spare tyre mounts to. So in this smaller compartment here, it's just your factory tyre changing equipment. So that's still the same as when we bought it. And then on this side here is a bit of an empty space. So in this case, we've just mounted a few bits and pieces that are tied up inside that door there. One thing I have seen done to these cars as well, you can replace this panel here with a bit of a homemade table setup. It's something that Mark might consider doing in the future, but for now, that's just stock standard there. Other than that, that's about it for the rear compartment there. I think the other thing Mark was considering adding was some LED lighting in here as well. So it's a little bit dark when I'm standing here at night time. So wouldn't go astray to stick some sort of LED switch here, lighting here, and it will just light up this area, especially when you're camping without a van or a trailer or something like that. So that's it for the back of this car. Okay guys, so thanks for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed the rundown of the Prado 150. A couple of things we'll mention with this car. Look, these are a great tourer and a very good compromise between a real big car like a Land Cruiser, which still keeps capability as well. So these cars, some of the benefits of these are their traction control system really does shine them up. So they got an awesome traction control system that allows it to get up a lot of things that you wouldn't expect a car like this to get up. And another big benefit is fuel consumption. They are great on fuel. So I believe this car is using between 11 and 12 litres per 100k, obviously a bit more when it's towing, but around town and general driving, great car to use. The other thing as well, another future mod that Mark is thinking about doing to this car, and something that I probably should have considered when putting in a suspension to start with, is a GVM upgrade kit. I have got another video coming out in relation to the weights on this car, and just with the accessories that we have included and put onto this vehicle, and just how quickly stock GVM is reached and exceeded, especially when you're towing something like a caravan. So something that Mark will consider is putting that kit on there just to increase that GVM and make it a little bit safer on road, maybe handle a bit better when we're towing those big loads as well. So other than that, I hope you found it informative and maybe you got some ideas from this video. If you have any questions, you can hit us up at Exploring Oz on Facebook or Instagram. We'll try and get back to you. More than happy to help you out wherever we can and answer any questions you might have about this car or about anything we do on the channel. So again, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Cheers, guys.